Welcome this morning. I'm Tim Chapman, the President and CEO of the Foundation here at Fort Hays State University, and we are here to recognize a very special family, very special guy and friend to this university, Hap Voss, representing the Voss family. I met Omar Sr., his father, and Annabelle, mother, back when I first started here in '06 in Chicago. I'd often go to their home and visit with them. And it wasn't a rare thing. That time they were of age, let's say, more mature, as I like to say. And Omar would oftentimes have to get up and leave the room for therapy and that sort of thing. And I'd sit down and talk with Annabelle, and I said, Annabelle, here's a chance you can really tell me the truth. I've heard all these stories of the world travels and your adventures together. What is really the truth? And she would laugh. She was battling some health issues at the time as well, but she'd always laugh and had a little smile on her face and said, Tim, our life together has literally carried us around the world. But the support that we have given to so many different organizations isn't appreciated as much as it is with our gift at Fort Hays State University. Our money seems to go further there. I'm not sure why. It just does, and you're so appreciative of that support. And Omar would come back in and he'd say, Tim, I was the best in the world on a typewriter, and I was the best in the world throwing shoes. Here's a guy that was a world leader for a world company, and that's what he would talk about. Try to take me on a typewriter, Tim, without error, by the way, and you will not beat me. I am that good. And we would just laugh and tell stories about those sorts of things. And of course, Omar and Annabelle started the Voss Professorship here at Fort Hays State in 2003. And since that time, many gifts have come our way in support of that and leadership initiatives here as well. His dream to fulfill the hopes of his father, Hap, is coming true here at Fort Hays State. Omar always told me, he says, Tim, I know you want more money. I do. That's why you're coming here. You want more money. And I just kind of laugh it off and say, Omar, I just want to hear more about you. And he'd say, Hap is the guy that you need to go see. He's going to be the guy that controls everything eventually. You need to meet Hap. Well, I got in the plane and flew to San Francisco immediately to meet Hap. And ever since then, we've been very good friends. And Hap has stepped to the plate and established many things and continued many things here on our campus. Although he is not an alum, he's a family guy. And he understood what the vision is for his family and the leadership initiatives that his father held so dear to his heart in regards to how he can change students' lives with support here at Fort Hays State. And that legacy is going to go on in perpetuity here at Fort Hays State. And we're so happy to have Hap here today to talk a little bit to us about that. But first, I'm going to have Jill Ornsdorf, the Chair of Leadership Studies, step forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Omar Jr., and your family for this incredible gift. It really is going to reach and impact so many Fort Hays State University students, and for that we thank you. Your family's legacy, as Tim mentioned, will continue to live on through the students' participation in value, and we thank you. So what is value? We are here today to announce a brand new program that is going to be funded through Omar Jr.'s family's gift. Value is the Voss Advanced Leadership Undergraduate Experience. This program was created collaboratively with faculty in the Department of Leadership Studies over the last 12 months. Two of the major objectives that Omar wanted to see as part of this program were helping students develop more collaborative and operations or just get it done skills. I am proud to say that our department modeled those two objectives during the development of value over the past year. I want to send a special thank you to Kaylee Klaus, our current GTA in the Department of Leadership Studies, and Dr. Justin Greenleaf, assistant professor, for their work this past fall and spring in the development of the core elements of the program. Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about Value. I'm excited to unveil this program today for all of you. Value is designed to develop the most promising undergraduates into powerful agents for good. The Value program is a year-long curriculum, both co-curricular and curricular experiences for students at Fort Hays State University. Students will be challenged to embrace and dedicate themselves to deeper individual development. They will do so through those two main learning objectives: operations and collaboration. We define operations as leaders and followers must simply make it happen. And collaboration we define as the ability to exercise collaborative skills where all players are involved in the decision-making and implementation phases of change. To accomplish these objectives, students in the Value program will explore and develop a plan of study for 1 year related to one of 3 tracks. Those 3 tracks are corporate leadership, civic and nonprofit leadership, as well as scholarship and leadership research. Throughout the year, students will be matched with mentors in their specific track. And we talked this morning and told Hap that I think probably the most important part of this program will be those mentors in those students' lives. Students will take 2 advanced leadership lab courses. They will participate in a unique experiential learning component tied to their chosen track. And students will have opportunities to attend and present their work at conferences throughout the year, all with the gift from your family. At the end of their Value program experience, students will submit an e-portfolio to present the scope of their work to leadership studies, faculty, and Value mentors. This spring, we are fortunate to unveil this program with 10 students who were selected to participate next academic year. And I am proud to announce and introduce to you that inaugural class for the 2015-16 academic year. If the students would stand or wave as I announce their names, and please remain standing until all have been announced, and then we'll applaud for you at the end. You want them to come forward? Okay, come forward, please. Stephen Anderson. Stephen is an informatics major from Kansas City, Kansas. Lindsay Smith. Lindsay is an organizational leadership major from Wichita, Kansas. Ashley Templeton. Ashley is an organizational leadership major from Wilson, Kansas. Ashley's not joining us today. Okay. Chance Bulmer. Chance is an organizational leadership major from Hays, Kansas. Lizette Avalos. Lizette is an organizational leadership major from Liberal, Kansas. Tara Mills. Tara is an organizational leadership major from Ark City, Kansas. Emily Atherton. Emily is an organizational leadership major from Wichita, Kansas. Jade Singleton. Jade is an organizational leadership major from Denver, Colorado. Caitlin Dingus. Caitlin is an organizational leadership major from Cimarron, Kansas. And we have one other student who was not able to be with us today as well, Allie Sedbrook. Allie is an organizational leadership major from Denver, Colorado. Welcome to Value. I'll stand with you. Me and my Twitter. I'm so proud to be a part of a department that teaches students skills that are life skills. And we are thrilled to be able to celebrate this day with Omar Jr., celebrate the legacy of his family, and celebrate with our wonderful students who will be joining this program and exploring Value as students next year. I would like to now welcome Omar to the podium to say a few words about his family, their legacy, and why they chose Fort Hays and the Value program.
Well, it's a bigger crowd than I thought. I'm sitting up front. I didn't see everybody in the back there. Goodness. Jill, thank you very much. Tim, thank you. President Martin. Tim, where's Kurt? There he is. And Jill. And faculty, members of the press, students,
and value students. That was great to see you up here. Good morning. This is an exciting and an important day for me, for the family, and hopefully for Hayes and leadership. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here. I thank you for the opportunity to speak about leadership. I sort of think I'm preaching to the choir here as I look at all the leadership that's in this room, literally. Students who may know more than I, for that matter, about leadership. I joked with Kurt a little earlier that he and my father and I were in this same room, same place, except I was running around taking pictures. And it was a hot day, not like today. And the air conditioning system had broken down. And it was, frankly, as we saw in the pictures later, the shiny faces and the sweaty brows. It was a tough day, but a fun one. It was wonderful. And basically, it was good old springtime in Kansas. But as my 87-year-old father at the time, he was a trooper even then, well, he had his notes prepared, and he tried to read them in the dim light, but he couldn't. So he just tossed them aside. But he was energized at the excitement that was in the room, and frankly, he just rolled right on. He'd spoken so many times. It was easy, especially when he was home in Hayes. It was easy to do. So it's cool now. My notes are at least typed. So hopefully I will engage you a little bit better. So as Jill said, I'm here to talk a little bit about my parents' legacy, about myself, about why Hayes and why value. Well, the family legacy, you certainly heard some tales from Tim, and Jill filled you in on the program. Well, yes, Dad had some long ties to Kansas, was right out of Phillipsburg, not too far away, and obviously here. But he worked and lived on every continent. And in those days, from, well, obviously the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that was pretty tough to do. And frankly, that was at a time when, if you can imagine, it was paper memos and maybe a telex. And it took 2 hours to place, or 2 days for that matter, to place an international phone call. You try and manage and lead that far away from headquarters in Chicago. That was a challenge. But he was up to it, and I'll give some notes on Dad's background, but they're pretty brief. If you would, not to give instructions, but the foundation has a wonderful tribute to him on the Cornerstone page. And also the leadership department has several tabs to click on if you are in value, and click on family legacy and so forth. It's just an interesting view. We weren't going to have pictures and so forth, but it's nice to see the picture of whoever you're talking about, frankly. And actually the value students, if they haven't received it, they have a bio on each parent, so they know who and why and where and the reasons for it. And that has a few pictures too. Well, frankly, Dad went from being that could be scary. He went from being a 9-year-old lad on the farm, driving a team of 4 horses, and I don't know if any of you have ever tried to do that, but that's not an easy job when you're 9 years old and that high. But he did, and he went on to Hayes, and then to KU Law School, and that was a pretty big jump in those days, in the 30s. He was a bookkeeper in credit collections, and on to being vice chairman at a multinational corporation, International Harvester, or now Navistar. Not quite the size that it used to be. But he led International Harvester into global markets, frankly, when global wasn't even in the business jargon. It was just worldwide, go out there somewhere beyond. That was a tough challenge to take on, take your family overseas, in those days at least. So, how did he do it? Well, of course, with Mother at his side. That's what made it work. He enrolled at Hayes in 1933 at age 16. There are 850 other students here. And that was in the heart of the Depression. Banks were closed. and you know the rest. What you might not know is that tuition was $18.75 in those days per semester. And he rented a room at 706 Walnut Street for $3 a week. Bread was 5 cents a loaf, beans about the same. And that's all he could afford, was poor. But Fort Hays was right for him. He graduated in just 3 years, poli-sci major. And guess what? He was a straight A student. And he was driven even in those days. And he wasn't just the champion in horseshoes and debate. He made a name for himself in many ways. I think it was his mother that drove him. When he was in grade school, high school, he got a B. Well, son, who got the A? I mean, it was, why didn't you, kind of thing. Which was good parenting. Little leadership there, maybe. The other side of leadership. But sort of digressing there. But frankly, why his legacy to Hays? Well, obviously he was an alumnus. But as a great debater here and then at KU, where he coached and debated, he told me that those debating experiences helped him. He learned to and practice skills for the future. Now later, well, why don't you think about what those skills are? I'm going to be talking with some students. What would those skills be? Just plain old debate that would lead to success in the future. Well, anyhow, his words here in 2004, I quote, he said, "Such leadership skill and experience was learned the hard way and took practice and determination, characteristics which I challenge you students to find in yourselves." And I'll echo that. Dig down and find them. Well, over time, he and Mother, they set up scholarship programs here. And at the National Lutheran Church, at KU, boo. And at University of Colorado, double boo. And at 4-H headquarters. There might be some 4-Hers in this crowd. I don't know if you know, he was the founding chairman of 4-H when it all merged together in the 70s. He's in their Hall of Fame. So why is there a stronger legacy here than at 4-H? Well, guess what? That began when he gave the commencement address here in 1961. Were you and your parents even a glimmer in your grandparents' eyes in those days? Maybe not. And who'd have thought you'd be here now? But I must say, rereading his speech, he predicted China's rise. It was called something about the economic growth in the world. And this was 61. Just try to think about that. Well, China's rise, European Economic Union, a lot of caveats about America and leadership, what it was doing right and wrong. And it was rather interesting to read. Well, getting to the legacy, Fort Hays sent him a check for $600 honorarium. Well, of course he couldn't accept it, so he and Mother set up a scholarship fund. Well, good. And the years since then, they have funded it and other initiatives here. They've given, I think, over $1 million to Hays. As Depression-era students, they knew that scholarships were very helpful. I learned that too at Michigan, and later as a graduate teaching assistant on the GI Bill. I needed that. But do scholarships build leaders? Maybe, and maybe not. Well, you've heard, thank you Tim and Jill, and may hear more about how my parents worked with the foundation and Kurt on the distinguished professorship. And what a wonderful program that's been in Kurt's hands. I tell you, they were so proud. But keep in mind that leadership wasn't even a term then, really. He was on the cutting edge. Well, specifically back to the leadership legacy then, my father managed people and teams around the world, served on corporate and civic boards. I'd hear him say things like, there's got to be a better way to help talented people become better leaders. You just teach them how to lead, where to lead, how to overcome their reluctance to lead. And he'd sometimes look at me when he's muttering these things. Well, was he asking me? I don't know if I should answer or not. I wasn't quite sure if I was in the leader group or the non-leader group. Well, frankly, in 2004, again when he was here, and I'm quoting from his speech then, says, I've managed people with outstanding knowledge and skills, but they had not received the training or education or coaching necessary to give them the leadership skills that they and we need badly. Too often our most knowledgeable and talented employees are lacking the necessary skills to lead others. I've seen so many good men and women fail, and that's not right. And Tim and Kurt have heard that a few times. We need to train them and prepare them to lead. Well, I'll add to that, to lead at every level, not just from the top. You think of leaders, no, leaders are at all of these levels. Well, more later, but the leadership faculty here is helping you develop those abilities, including those you don't know you have. I'll emphasize those. Well, a little bit about me. What are my credentials in all of this? Well, they're pretty humble. As I stand here, I'm not a nationally recognized leader. I'm not a CEO. I'm certainly an interested party, to say the least. Well, way back, as an undergrad at Michigan, that was the University of Michigan, not Michigan State. Then on to the Navy in Vietnam. I was pretty rusty after that. I went back to grad school to get an MBA. Well, surprise, I got straight A's. I was motivated then. I was excellent in management case studies. I was a finance whiz. I was a marketing jock. I was pretty good. I was even a business instructor for a year. And he winced. That really was. But then into business. I retired a couple years ago as Senior Vice President at Bank of America in Treasury Management, Sales, Consulting, and Systems. I was generally successful. I had a mix of roles in the back room and in frontline customer service. That was fun times. And eventually I was good at all of them. I earned rewards, I exceeded goals, I received accolades from my teammates and customers. But early on, I wasn't the leader I could have been. I had all the book learning, the classroom skills, and knew what should be done, but I really didn't know how to implement, to get it done. How to see something through to completion in a corporate setting. No, I sat at Dad's knee, didn't know. Well, frankly, in my early years when I was asked to lead, I didn't know how to reach down and say enthusiastically, I can do that, I can make it happen. It was more like, well, yeah, okay, boss, I can do that, I guess. And two, I didn't know how to collaborate. Well, collaborate wasn't even in the vocabulary then. But to work through these things, let alone get it done with people on several continents. So, well, who did what? Who did when? How do you do that kind of thing? Which brings me to value. I was working on my parents' legacy and their activities. I talked with my sister, and she's a doer and instigator, if ever there was one. And we reflected on her parents' actions and leadership and those kinds of activities. Well, somewhere in that, I thought about me. You know, I had all the book learning, those classroom skills, so why wasn't I prepared for leadership? Sort of bothered me, but I thought leadership, I thought Fort Hays. So I picked up the phone, came out here, I talked to Tim and Kurt and Jill, and we went through some of these things. I told them some of these same points about myself, my business performance, my successes, and my early needs. Then I asked them, so how do you help young people? Is there a way to augment a course or to add something? Or just some way to get kids, young leaders, to test, to practice leadership? Or do you do that in your classes already? Duh, you know, Omar, go home, we do that. No. But is there something different then, or bolder, that we could do? And needless to say, they got it. They came up with value. Their answers were impressive. In fact, I just reread what Jill was quoting from. And it was spot on, really was. Obviously, I'm pleased to be part of rolling out this important program. I'm proud of everyone who has worked so hard to make it happen. And frankly, if you haven't gathered by now, Make It Happen just sort of popped out of the air when we were talking about all of this. I don't know if it was Tim that nudged me or Kurt lit up, Jill, big smile. Like, yeah, just make it happen. How do you do that? And yes, we could do that. Well, so we did. And quite honestly, I don't want to ramble on any further. So in closing, any words of wisdom for you? No, not necessarily, but we will talk with some of you later, right after this, and I look forward to that. But frankly, a good leadership program should develop self-confidence, encourage people to bring out their best attributes, academically and personally. Don't have to be in class to be a leader. I will offer that you can lead at any level. You don't have to be the CEO. And if you're not in the value program, read its overview, take those ideas into your own work and class. I suggest that you do that passionately, drive yourselves, commit to something, and just take ownership. It's amazing what you can do when you do that. And when you succeed, and you will, have passion for the people that you manage, not the processes, the people. Develop them, mentor them, teach them, guide them, and teach them the tough lessons. You know, the toughest manager I had taught me the most. When you have that opportunity, embrace it. Don't go sulk. Neil Walsh said, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Yeah, but I might say leading begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Eventually I figured that out. And value will help you do that when you step outside these doors. I know the value program is going to be successful in your faculty's hands. Their energy and enthusiasm and insight and their talents are inspiring. They really are. You're very fortunate here. I'll offer my best to them, to all of you. Learn and practice the skills that they, in your time here at Fort Hays, provide you. Well, you've heard the reasons I chose to support the value program. So now I urge you, whether you're selected for value or not, to take those steps in your classes, in your vocation, whatever your role is. Go ask questions, go practice, stand in front of a mirror if necessary, practice and practice. Go find mentors. Later on in your work, pick those people that you want. reach down deep, go out beyond your comfort zone, and just do it and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Hap. You know, when we were talking with Hap during this whole process and in several of my different trips to San Francisco to visit with Hap, you know, the three questions that he'd always ask is, you know, if this is what I wanted to get done, how much is it going to cost, and what's the outcome? And so we talked about that, and as a team, that's where value was born. And this gift of $200,000, the initial gift of $200,000, initial gift, it can be added to for those that are around the room, is making it happen. And that's what is so very, very exciting. And speaking of making it happen, I think it's appropriate now for our president, who has stirred the waters in many ways to make it happen here at Fort Hays State, Dr. Mirta Martin. Please come forward.
Thank you all for being here. You know, almost a year ago, I started speaking about family and the value of family. And today's gift is so representative of what family means and what family do for each other. The legacy will live on because of you, because of your parents, because of the many contributors and benefactors that each and every day believe in the value of family and come back home to Fort Hays State University to invest in the next generation of leaders that you have called the Value Program. And there's so many programs and so many leaders. As you rightly stated, leadership is not necessarily what occurs at the top of the house. Leadership is a moment, it's a passion, it's an inspiration, it's the ability to touch others when nobody is looking because it's the right thing to do. Leadership is about giving a smile or giving a handout that I speak about an awful lot of the time. You know, we care a lot about the Tiger family here at Fort Hays State University and our benefactors, all of them throughout the world. But you have now become part of that great big family as a tribute that you're paying today to your parents. And as I said earlier, that legacy will live on and will affect so many, many, many students and will impact so many, 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 many lives, because you will show them through this program the importance of leading from the heart, the importance of finding something greater than self, the importance of having a passion that's beyond self. And that's what this program will do. So, on behalf of a family, your family at Fort Hays State University, I wish to say thank you to you. Your gift will ensure that leadership at Fort Hays State University will continue to live because of a pledge that was made by your family, a pledge that will endure across the miles, across the years, and across many, many, many generations to come. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming home.
Talking to Omar, and I said, you know, Omar, your gifts have been so fantastic at Fort Hays. What makes you the most excited? He goes, you know, that dang Kurt Brungart just seems to be getting things done. And it's just so wonderful to see the progress and how the students are reacting under his leadership. And with that, Kurt Brungart.
Thank you, Tim. Over the last decade, I've had the honor of having the title as Omar Voss Distinguished Professor of Leadership Studies here at Fort Hays State University. Omar and Annabelle Voss and their family have made a tremendous impact on this university. More importantly, not more importantly, but specifically, the Department of Leadership Studies, the Center for Civic Leadership, and most importantly, our students. And now today, we thank HAP and Geraldine for their continued support of this university on behalf of their entire family. HAP, again, thank you. Today is very personal to me. Before Omar and Annabelle's death, I got to spend a lot of quality time in their home in Chicago. I would make an excuse to go to Chicago once or twice a year and to sit in the living room, and we grew close together. I heard many stories of their love affair as young people. I heard stories of them in the Kremlin, even when Kissinger couldn't get there, Omar could. His time in the kingdom in Saudi Arabia, and on and on and on. And then, of course, before I would leave every time, Omar had advice for me and our leadership students. Kurt, you gotta make them lead. On some of those trips, there was this young man named Omar Jr. Hap was there. At that time, I got to develop a relationship with Hap, and after his parents' death, I now make a trip to San Francisco on a regular basis to visit with Hap about mom and dad and about Fort Hays State. 3 years ago, I got to experience the greatest honor of my life. I got to speak at Omar's funeral. Omar died 3 years ago at the age of 95. I would like to take a moment and share a few things that I shared that day in that church about Omar. I said, while Omar's physical body is no longer with us, he lives on through the leadership studies students that he has impacted. Through his resources, his passion, his ideas, he continues to have tremendous impact on the students at Fort Hays State University. That day, if you remember, Hap, I started saying students' names. And I said with each name I shared of these dozens of students I mentioned that day at that church, I said Omar lives on through each of them. Omar and Annabelle live on, their lives live on through the great students of Fort Hays State University. Now again, with this recent gift and the development of the Value Program, the Value family continues to impact FHSU and most importantly our students. Finally, Hap and share with Geraldine, on behalf of the Fort Hays State family, thank you, and thank you for everything you've done for Fort Hays State University. Thank you.
You know, Omar, you say you don't know or didn't know how to implement leadership. I think that's proven wrong today. You know, thank you so much. I know two people that are smiling in a very broad and big range and saying, we're proud of you, son. So with that, thank you very much.